Hello everybody, Mama S here, and today we're going to talk about blog post number 9 from our blog, Two Moms in the Foster Lane. And this blog post is what happens when kids come into care, and I'm going to reference back to the blog a few times because I make a lot of comments in the blog post and I want to make sure that I hit them. So first is when we wrote this post, we had gotten a few false calls or false alarms, I guess. They had called us for kids and they didn't work out for one reason or another. There was some kids that were terrified of dogs. There was a sibling set of 3 that we would have only taken 2, and someone was able to take all 3. Just a variety of different reasons. So in the meantime, we decided to write about what happens when a kid comes into care, how a kid comes into care, because that's something that people are pretty curious about. So first is where we live, there's a phone number, and I'm sure it's everywhere, that people can call, and in our area it's 220-SAFE, and that is 220-SAFE in Milwaukee County. So we're in Milwaukee County. We don't live in Milwaukee, but we live close. But anyone can call in anonymously and report suspected abuse or neglect. Now, I've called 220-SAFE on someone in the past, and I will say that they have a healthy dose of skepticism in whether or not there is abuse. They're going to ask a lot of questions because ultimately they're trying to screen calls in or out. So the person on the phone takes the call, they go through everything, and then that gets sent to another worker who's going to read through it and determine, is this an emergency? Do we have to dispatch someone immediately to go check on these kids? Or can we, maybe reach out to them tomorrow, or things along those lines? And then once it's decided that they do need to go out to the house, then somebody goes out to the house and does an assessment in the house. Are the kids in immediate danger, and is it required to remove the kids, or is it possible to put services in place to help those kids stay in the home? For our area, absolutely, it is key and pushed and really worked at that kids stay in the home as much as possible, just because there's so much research around the amount of trauma that happens when kids are removed from their home, in addition to the trauma that they had before. So I said the supervisor, and then we talked about the initial assessment worker who goes out to the house to do the assessment. They interview the adults in the home, they interview the children in the home, they may look for marks. So with abuse, honestly, if there's no mark, it's really hard to prove that there's abuse, which is a really hard thing. And the other thing that they're looking for is there a friend or family member that might be able to step in? So one of the calls that we got, they ended up finding a friend or family member, I don't remember, who was able to go and stay at that house all day and monitor the interactions with the kids to get things healthy. So that's definitely a possible. And then if the child's going to be removed from the home, they call Child Protective Services, which is an overreaching group for the entire state. And they call Child Protective Services, and they're running any background checks on any of the family members, because if the children are going to be removed, then the first step is to get them with family, because again, staying with family causes less trauma. So they're checking to see if there's any family members. While that's happening, they're reaching out to whichever agency might be placing to find an out-of-home placement as well. So that's another reason why you could get a phone call for a possible placement, and then 2 hours later you find out, nope, there's an aunt that's going to take them, or you find out the next day that there's a cousin that's going to take them, or a sister that's going to take them, or something along those lines. And it's hard, absolutely, but again, it's best for the kids to stay with family when it's safe. After that, so if the kid does come into care, into out-of-home care, and they're placed with a fostering agency. It goes to one of the agencies, they find a home, they go with that, and then a week later there's a meeting where everything gets transferred to the new agency from Child Protective Services. So everybody kind of sits down, has a meeting, and talks through the reasons for removal and, kind of the plan and place and everything going forward. So we're talking about that. The case gets transferred to the family case manager, which I mentioned, and then people want to know, like, how long do these kids stay into care? Well, it depends on your state, absolutely, but in our state, there's technically 15 months from the date of removal to it's 15 months later when the courts have to say, okay, we're looking for permanency, is adoption the option? So biological parents are usually given 15 months. Now, if you talk to any foster parent, they will scoff at you at the 15 months, because I know people who have had foster kids in their care for 3, 4, 5 years. So not ideal, but generally if things go according to plan, it's usually about 15 months. And then, but you can also know that it can happen earlier. So there are children whose parents decide, yeah, I'm not going to fight this. I'm no good for these kids. They can voluntarily terminate their rights, which will speed up the process, or they can just not be involved at all. And after 6 months of no contact, they're considered to have abandoned their rights, and then the child can be up for adoption. So all in all, within the first hours or week that a child is brought into care, there's no less than 9 people that are involved in this process. So some people say, oh, everybody wants to take all of these kids, and, people have all of these biases and things like that. While that's not true for the majority of people, that might be true for some people, but you have to realize that there's 9 people involved. So if one person has an impartial bias, there are other people involved that can say, no, this is not the way this happens. And so that's going to be the process of a kid coming into care and kind of going from there. Any questions that you have, please go ahead and let me know. Drop a comment in with any questions or comments, your personal experience, things like that. But until next time, if you'd like to keep going, you can read our blog, twomomsinthefosterlane.com. Thanks. Have a great day.